The message appeared on my phone while I was standing at the grocery store checkout. Transaction declined. I tried the card again, thinking the machine had made a mistake. It declined a second time. Then another notification appeared. Your card has been temporarily restricted by the primary account holder. My hands went cold. My husband had locked my credit card. I called Daniel immediately. He answered after several rings. What happened to the card? I asked. His response was calm, almost careless. I locked it. I laughed because I honestly thought he was joking. Daniel, I'm buying groceries for your mother's dinner tonight. His voice suddenly became serious. You should have asked me before spending anything. I stood there staring at the checkout screen. Since when do I need permission to buy groceries? I asked. He paused before saying, From now on, you ask me before you spend money. Then he ended the call. I looked at the groceries in my cart and realized this wasn't really about a credit card. Something much bigger was happening. When I returned home, Daniel was sitting in the living room with his mother, Linda. She looked at me with a strange little smile. We were just discussing your spending habits, she said. Daniel nodded. Mom thinks you need to learn some financial discipline. I slowly put my keys on the table. Your mother thinks she should control my money? Linda immediately became defensive. Don't make this personal. Daniel is your husband. He has every right to make financial decisions for this family. I looked at Daniel. Our family. I corrected. He didn't answer. Instead, he told me that from that day forward, he would control all major expenses. I didn't argue. I simply went upstairs and opened my laptop. For years, I had trusted Daniel to handle most of our household finances. I had never questioned him because I believed marriage meant trust. But that evening, for the first time, I decided to check every account myself. What I found made my stomach turn. Several transfers had been made from our joint account over the previous year. They weren't large enough to attract attention individually, but together they added up to thousands of dollars. The money had gone to accounts I didn't recognize. I checked the transaction history again. Every transfer had been made using online banking credentials connected to Daniel's phone. Then I noticed something even worse. A recent application had been submitted to change the authorization on one of our accounts. I walked downstairs and asked Daniel casually, Have you changed anything with the bank recently? He looked at me for half a second before answering, No, why? His answer was too quick. I smiled and said, Just wondering. Then I walked away. That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about the money, the locked card, his mother's strange confidence, and the paperwork I had seen online. By morning I had made a decision. I wouldn't confront Daniel until I knew exactly what he had done. I got dressed, took my identification and financial documents, and drove directly to the bank. I didn't tell Daniel where I was going. When I sat across from the bank manager, I explained everything. He pulled up my account records and became unusually quiet. After several minutes, he turned his computer toward himself and said, There's something here you need to see. He showed me a document requesting full financial authority for Daniel. My heart stopped. The signature at the bottom was supposed to be mine. But it wasn't my signature. Someone had copied it. The manager asked me directly, Did you authorize this? I shook my head. Absolutely not. He immediately began reviewing the account history and found several other suspicious changes. Then came the biggest surprise. Daniel hadn't simply been transferring money. He had been trying to move control of the accounts entirely into his name. The bank had already flagged one of the requests because something about the documentation didn't match their records. The manager asked whether I wanted to freeze the questionable transactions. I said yes. He also helped me create a completely separate account that Daniel couldn't access. I moved my personal savings into it and changed every security setting. Before leaving, I asked one final question. Can you tell my husband what happened? The manager shook his head. Only with your authorization. I smiled and said, Then don't tell him anything. 2 hours after Daniel locked my credit card, I walked out of the bank with protected accounts, copies of suspicious transactions, and enough evidence to understand exactly what had been happening behind my back. Daniel thought I was sitting at home feeling helpless. He had no idea I had already taken control of my future. When I arrived home, I found 23 missed calls on my phone. Daniel was waiting in the kitchen. His anger disappeared the moment he saw my face. "Where were you?" he demanded. I calmly put my bag down and said, "The bank." Linda was there too. She immediately looked at Daniel. "What did you tell her?" she asked nervously. Daniel ignored her and tried to explain that everything was a misunderstanding. I placed the bank documents on the table between us. "Then explain this," I said. Daniel looked at the forged signature and suddenly couldn't speak. Linda picked up the papers and stared at him. "You told me she agreed to this," she whispered. Daniel finally admitted that he had been moving money because he believed I would eventually discover what he had done. I looked at the man I had trusted for years and felt strangely calm. "You locked my credit card because you wanted me to feel powerless," I said. "But all you really did was give me a reason to check everything." Daniel started apologizing, but I was no longer listening. That evening, I made the hardest decision of my life. I wasn't going to fight for the marriage I thought I had. I was going to protect myself and walk away from the person who had betrayed my trust. Daniel thought controlling my money meant controlling me. He was wrong. The moment he locked my card, he unknowingly unlocked the truth. And once I saw the truth, there was no going back.